So just to say, welcome YouTube, anybody on YouTube, and we'll be starting in 1 more minute. Just waiting for the last of the people on Zoom to arrive, and then handing over to Mahasraddha to lead the second of his, his series, I suppose. I'll leave him to explain what it is. But the last one was really good, so good anticipation for this one.
However the program might unfold, Silabodi.
Yes, we have had discussions about the order of the program, but you know, hey, it will be what it will be.
2 minutes before.
It's boring to settle down and you know have a plan,
it's
be spontaneous.
It is.
Yeah. Okay, Mahasraddha, I think it's quite time. 6 minutes past. Quite over to you then, really.
Oh, is it? Okay.
We've diddled around long enough.
Okay. Tom, have we got our visitors from our friends from Pune?
Tom? I'm not sure if they're... Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Okay, that's fine. If you're from Pune.
Yeah, I think they're there, yeah.
Okay. Particularly, well, very warm welcome to everybody. Particularly our friends from Pune in India. And I believe it's about 11:30 in the evening. So our friends in Pune are staying up late for this, I think. So yeah, a very, very warm welcome to everybody. This is the second evening in the series of, which I've titled Unlocking Treasures of the Mind in the Presence of the Buddha. And for those of you who were with us last week, the program is going to be different this week in that we are actually going to be having breakout groups. And I blame Shantideva for breakout groups. In preparing for this evening, I kind of rediscovered or recalled a quote from Shantideva from his spiritual masterpiece called the Bodhicharya Avatara. And I won't give you that quote now. I'm going to give it during the talk, and it will form the basis of breakout groups. And I think the quote it's a wonderful, wonderful quote because it brings out the really challenging aspects of metta. It challenges one of the greatest, if you like, inhibitors of metta, which I believe is self-cherishing. But we'll come on to that a little later. So tonight's program is as follows. Well, the revised program tonight is as follows. First of all, I'll be speaking for about 20 minutes, and then we'll have a guided meditation of about 45 minutes. And then we'll have a break, during which time we'll say goodbye to our YouTube viewers, and then we'll have breakout groups for about 12 minutes, and then we'll finish the evening with transference of merits and self-surrender. So that's the program for this evening. It's pretty simple, but it has to be if we've only got an hour and a half and we want to focus on meditation. So last week we looked at equanimity as the first quality, as the first treasure of mind, which I wanted to bring out. A treasure which, as I said last week, a treasure is there, it's always there, but we've just got to discover it. We've just got to create the right conditions in which that treasure can be viewed. So this evening, we're going to be looking at the treasure of metta, which I believe is always there for us to tap into. It's just we've got to create the right conditions, which I'll come on to a little later. And also we can unlock the treasure of metta, in particular, I find, in the presence of the Buddha. So in the meditation, we'll be doing what's called the Buddanussati practice, which is basically sitting in the presence of the Buddha. So, like equanimity, metta is a key, attitude of mind to be cultivated or to be dwelled in Buddhist practice. Because like equanimity, it's one of the 4 Brahma Viharas, which are alternatively called the divine abodes, and they've been taught by the Buddha. So metta is a divine abode. It's a divine abode. It's a realm of the gods. So I'll just say a few words about metta as I see it. Metta has both samatha and vipassana aspects to it. Samatha is calming, vipassana is insight. So metta is calming because I think in the presence of metta, we're less agitated. We're calmer because we are connected with ourselves and others in a forgiving, loving way. You think about the times when you've probably been most agitated. It might be in relationship to a dispute with somebody else. So metta is a calming samatha. It brings calm to the mind because we're connected. The more we're connected with ourselves and others and with the world around us, the more calmer we are, in my experience anyway. Metta also has a vipassana aspect to it. A vipassana is traditionally known as insight into how things are. So my experience of the vipassana element of metta happened quite early on in my engagement with Buddhism. I was on a retreat at Vajraloka, and it was an afternoon meditation where I just thought nothing was going to happen because I was really tired, and it was also quite a challenging time of my life as well emotionally. So I went to the shrine and thinking, oh, nothing much will happen, and then I got quite absorbed and I entered the dhyanas, and then I kind of had an insight into the what are called the Four Noble Truths. The first of which is that suffering is unavoidable. At some point or another in our lives, we will suffer. That is just how it is. And I knew that on an intellectual level, but I really saw this right in my bones, right in the depths of my being, that dukkha, or unsatisfactoriness, was part of human existence. And the only thing I could do to, if you like, escape from dukkha was to get enlightened, according to the Buddhist tradition. So I saw that there's nothing I could do about dukkha apart from practice Buddhism and develop insight. And of course, I saw that it wasn't just for me that dukkha was inescapable in my current states, but also for all other beings, be it animals, be it humans, but also animals, which is incidentally why we're vegetarian in Buddhism, because we connect very much strongly with, on the basis of, well, I connect with vegetarianism and veganism through suffering. So when you see that all beings suffer at some point, then how else, what other response is there to life apart from metta? That was the conclusion I came to. And the practice of the vipassana element of metta has played a really, really, really important part in my life, especially in times of acute emotional pain. When I experience acute emotional pain, the tendency is to withdraw into myself and isolate myself even further and try and get what I want, which is the alleviation of suffering through often very flawed strategies. So metta has been really, really important to prevent further suffering to myself and others in acute emotional pain, because metta connects us with other people. And the solution is often in relationship to other people and not being contracting into an isolated being, in my experience. And I think moving from the samatha to vipassana elements of metta does require a loosening of a kind of this kind of self-identification, which quite naturally and evolutionarily speaking we have. It's quite a natural tendency to think of ourselves as number one in the universe, and we are number one in the universe. And as I said before, I think this tendency towards self-preoccupation, however subtle, is the biggest barrier to experiencing metta in its fullness. Because I believe, and I experience it like this, that metta is a natural state of the human mind when awareness is relaxed, open and spacious, and not self-preoccupied. I don't need to do anything. I don't need to do any kind of development. It just seems to arise quite naturally. It seems to just be quite a natural human state of mind. And it's nothing out there. It's within us all the time, I believe. We've just got to create the conditions for it to arise. Yeah, because I think in my experience, kind of the selfing process, as I call it, keeps us isolated from ourselves and others. It keeps me restless. It keeps me agitated when life is all about me, me, me. And when we're experiencing metta, I believe that we are closer to experiencing reality as described or depicted by the Buddha. In reality, we are not this separated, isolated, me, 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 me. We are actually in deep connection with ourselves and others and the world around us. That is how it is. And I think the tendency towards creating this deluded I, sense of I, or at least from a Buddhist perspective, is the source of all dukkha, is the source of all unsatisfactoriness. So if we can just relax out of that, dukkha will ease quite naturally. And in his Bodhicharya Shantideva is very, very hot indeed on how this quite natural selfing process inhibits connection with ourselves and others. And he says it leads to all suffering and it prevents the arising of metta. He urges us to meditate on the essential equality of ourselves and others, in that we all have one fundamental driver in common. We all wish for happiness and we all wish to avoid suffering. That is the equality of all sentient beings. In this fundamental respect, we are all equal, and feelings of favoritism or repulsion are, Shantideva argues, they're just the result of relatively unimportant adventitious factors such as this person was nice to me, that person harmed me. And Shantideva argues that kind of thinking is just relatively superficial, because our commonality goes much, much deeper. The equality of ourselves and others is fundamental to existence. To reflect that no matter how much I may dislike somebody else, that they are just like me. And in their confused manner, just like me, they simply want to be happy. And it's really rewarding to cut through this deluded thinking, because it allows me to cut through the complexities of life with all the barriers and boundaries which modern life puts between me and others and other life. It's just so simple. Just reflect upon what is actually separating us from ourselves, from other people. It's such an important reflection, that I think. Shantideva argues that the identification of sufferings which are experienced as mine cause us even more problems. So it's my anxiety, my anger. And I guess partly because we just want to try and get rid of that, what we see as my anxiety or my anger. And in doing so, we often employ flawed strategies. So the quote Shantideva says, which I'm going to use for breakout groups, he says, all those who suffer in the world do so because of their desire for their own happiness. All those happy in the world are so because of their desire for the happiness of others. So I'll say that again. All those who suffer in the world do so because of their desire for their own happiness. All those happy in the world are so because of their desire for the happiness of others. And I'll come back to this quote. We'll come back to this quote in the breakout groups later. I think that's a really, really challenging quote. All those who suffer, us, in the world do so because of our desire for our own happiness. All those happy in the world are so because of their desire for the happiness of others. That quote demands, I think, a lot of reflection and attention. It's really challenging. So before I close, I just want to run through very briefly a few kind of attitudes or approaches to life which I found useful to support metta. Like probably every other practical aspect of Buddhism, whether it be equanimity, whether it be mindfulness, whether it be the practice of ethics, the key quality of mind that supports the arising metta is awareness. Simple as that, awareness. Awareness of our bodies, awareness of our feelings, awareness of our emotions, awareness of thoughts, awareness of our perceptions, awareness of impulses towards reactivity and habits, awareness of choice that we have from mind reactive to mind creative, as Sangha would say. We always have a choice to be creative with whatever experience arises in our minds. Then there is ethical practice. And I think the link between ethical practice and metta is pretty obvious. An ethical behavior isolates us from other people. Ethical behavior does the opposite. It connects us with other people. It connects us with other people through generosity, through awareness, through appropriate speech and so on, all the other 4 precepts. The other thing which supports metta, of course, is self-compassion. We all make mistakes. All of us do not get everything right all the time. And from time to time, we get things wrong in a way that upsets people, often unintentionally. So we need to forgive ourselves. We're just flawed human beings and we get things wrong. And a real difficulty with self-metta can be self-blame, self-guilt, self-hatred, and so on. So self-compassion, of course, is really important. Forgiveness of oneself is really important. Then the steadiness of mind, not being blown around here, there, and everywhere by experience. So mindfulness of breathing really helps with that. Cultivating an open, spacious awareness is really important. As I say, for me, metta quite naturally arises when the quality of awareness which I have is relaxed, open, and spacious. Beauty, I find as well, is really important aspect of developing metta. Beauty in terms of really noticing the simple acts which people perform to each other, acts of generosity, acts of tenderness, acts of kindness, acts of thoughtfulness, and so on, and really noticing them and just seeing how beautiful they are, how beautiful acts of consideration and thoughtfulness, which we can witness on a bus, in the street, in a care home, wherever, and all circumstances of life. We can just witness these often which we might think are quite trivial and often unnoticed acts, but we can make a practice of just noticing them and being inspired by the beauty of other people's action towards other. And finally, and this is one which Shantideva keeps on and on about, what supports the rising metta is the relaxing of the process of selfing. What I mean by the process of selfing is relating to ourselves in terms of me, 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 mine, 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 not me, not mine. Pulling and pushing away things all the time to satisfy this sense of I, which, as I said earlier, is a very, very natural process indeed. The Buddha said that overcoming the concept of self is truly the supreme bliss, truly the supreme bliss. So that's all I wanted to say as an opener on the topic of metta. We'll now do we'll do a period of meditation, which will just relax into metta, and then we'll sit in the presence of the Buddha to intensify that feeling of metta as well. So if you just settle into your meditation posture. So take all the time you need to settle into yourself. Settling into your body and settling into your mind. And just get to the point where you can be physically still. And when you're there, when you're settled in the body and still, just feel the pelvic floor of the cushion. Feel the contact of the buttocks with the cushion or the chair. And feel supported by the earth beneath you. So you can just relax because you're supported. And feel an inner core of the body from the pelvic floor right up to the crown of the head. So we can let go and relax and become still in the core of the body. So the whole of the amazing structure we call the body. Skeleton, muscles, organs, limbs, etc. All relax deeply. So the core of our body, from the pelvic floor to the crown of the head, becomes calm and still. And we don't follow thoughts, we just let them, just allow them to take place quite naturally. And same with experience of sensations and so on. Just notice each experience arise and change. So developing a mental attitude of opening to whatever presents itself in our minds, without actively exploring it, just letting it be. Just stay present, mindful, and open. And in this calm, still, relaxed, open state, we might feel metta, loving kindness, which is quite naturally there. In the body. This natural loving kindness. Which can be quite joyful. And as we become aware of it, it can get more and more intense. So it fills the body. Our bodies become filled with metta, a desire to connect with ourselves and others through loving kindness. And it has a quality of forgiveness. So resting your mind, the attention of the mind on the experience of metta. It might be in particular parts of your body. It might have filled your body. It might absorb you. How beautiful metta feels. How true metta feels, how right it feels. How beneficial it feels. And metta maybe takes on a form of golden light which fills our bodies. No crevice of the body left out. like water in an incoming tide, filling every crevice of our body is filled with metta. Which radiates out in all directions into the universe, above us, below us, to the sides. Metta radiates into the universe. And we can imagine ourselves being surrounded by all beings. And the metta radiates to fill the bodies of all beings that surround us. May they be happy. May they be free from suffering. And we may notice that in those beings, we might recognize the friend. And wish them well. And our friend returns the mass of beings surrounding us. And in the beings around us, we might notice somebody who we're not getting on, and they become a bit more prominent in the mass of beings around us. and we go deeper in our dislike and connect with them on the basis of equality, that we both want happiness and to be free from suffering. May they be happy, may they be well, may they be free from suffering. May we do what we can for them to relieve that suffering. Metta radiates from our body, maybe as golden light, and enters the body of the person in front of us who we dislike. And the core of our body becomes more and more calm and relaxed. As metta radiates from our body. And the person we dislike goes back into the mass of beings that surround us. And metta radiates from us, filling the bodies of all beings. And the whole universe reverberates with metal. Sabbe Sata Sukhiyantu. May all beings be well and free from suffering. Sabbe Sata Sukhiyantu. And now we just sit in the universe, which is full of metta. And this universe takes the form of a clear blue sky, which extends to infinity in all directions, above, below, to the sides of us. We are seated in infinite, boundless, clear blue sky. And in front of us, in the clear blue sky, appears the figure of the Buddha. He may not appear as a recognizable form, but just as presence, and that's good enough. The presence and enlightenment is before us. And the Buddha is seated on a lotus throne. He's supported by the open flowers of lotuses. And he's seated in meditation, cross-legged. with his hands gently resting in his lap, one on top of the other. And on his lips, he wears a serene smile. A compassionate smile. And his eyes are half closed, gazing upon us, gently but compassionately. He may be wearing robes with one shoulder uncovered. And his presence radiates wisdom and compassion. His presence radiates calmness, stillness, and a profound peace. The stillness of enlightenment. And his body begins to glow golden. And his qualities of compassion and wisdom can radiate out of his body. And from his heart, a beam of brilliant, translucent golden light enters our heart. Through the crown of our heads. And our body is filled with the wisdom and compassion of the Buddha. And metta intensifies in us. And the metta radiates from our bodies. The Buddha's wisdom and compassion radiates from our bodies into the universe. The whole universe is pervaded by the golden light of metta. And the golden light of the Buddha in filling the universe fills the bodies of all beings with wisdom and compassion. And the core of our bodies just gets more and more relaxed. As the golden light continues to pour from the Buddha's heart into our bodies. And the Buddha's body begins to shrink, smaller and smaller, until it's just a globule of pure golden light. Resting on the lotuses. And that golden light, that globule of golden light shoots across the universe and enters our hearts. And we feel the presence of the Buddha in our hearts. We feel the compassion of the Buddha. And we just sit quietly with the Buddha in our hearts, radiating wisdom and compassion. Our bodies are still, like that of the Buddha. And now we just relax, letting go of the blue sky, letting go of all beings that were surrounding us. And we just sit quietly and still. Just enjoying the fruits of the practice. Still feeling the presence of the Buddha in our hearts. Where he will reside, and we can call upon his influence whenever we wish, in our own time. We bring the practice to a close, gently moving your limbs and returning more to the senses of taste, touch, sound and sight. And just gently opening your eyes in your own time. Okay? So it's goodbye to the viewers on